Hi everyone, this is Reshmi working in Emmanuel Arsa JJ College of Engineering and Technology. Now we are here to learn a simple thing about remote sensing and its steps. Let's go deep into them. First, remote sensing, the science of acquiring information about an object without entering in contact with it by sensing and recording reflected or emitted energy and processing, analyzing and applying that information. Remote sensing is nothing but we can acquire an information about an object without a contact in it, but by sensing and recording the data, and we can analyze and process the information. So that is remote sensing. Let's we see a systematic diagram representing remote sensing. Here first the sun energy. So the sun energy source is reflected in the target, that is captured by the sensor. Sensor is nothing but the satellite, and it will display the data into the processing station. So that processing station will convert it into some informations like climate, weather, and something else. The detector will analyze those informations and display it to the application. Next, the sum of the components. First of all is signals from a source or light. So we can get the signals from a source or from a light, and then the next is sensors on a platform. Next we have get the signals from the sensor, so that is the second component. And next is sensing. Sensing is nothing but a signal reception, storage, processing, information extraction and decision making. We can sense the informations from the signal, storage and information extraction, and also from decision making. The last thing is the decision making. We can able to get the information from the sensor, and then the detector will analyze those informations and convert it into a decision. So next, types of remote sensing. What are all the types that we have in remote sensing? There are two types, that is passive remote sensing, active remote sensing. Let's go deep into the two types of remote sensing. First of all is passive remote sensing. Passive remote sensing is a method of gathering information about the Earth's surface and atmosphere without making physical contact. So, passive remote sensing is nothing but it is a method of gathering information. We can get the information from the Earth's surface with the contact with the other substance. So, we can go an example for that and going deep into it. First of all, when we go to the studio, the cameraman will passes the reflected light in us. So that light flashes in us and is captured by the, and the object is captured. So that is the example. The digital camera which is in front of the person is collecting the data of photographing the person, because the person is illuminating by the two spotlights. In the cam studio there are two spotlights which are gather the information or flash the light from the object. So that is a simple example for passive remote sensing. The two spotted lights flashes into our object and it can be captured in the camera. That is the digital camera which is in front of the person is collecting the data or photographing the person, because the person is illuminating by the two spotlights. So it is very similar to the passive remote sensing. The sunlight is illuminating the earth, and the those light will reflecting the earth surface, and the images will be captured by the satellites. So that is the passive remote sensing. Here the sunlight is reflects its light to the earth surface, so that the earth surface will reflect the images to the satellite. So it's a simple example and a simple method of remote sensing, which is passive remote sensing. So next, some of the applications of passive remote sensing. Environmental monitoring. So environmental monitoring is nothing but we can monitor the environment through passive remote sensing. Climates. Next one is climate studies. So it can be able to study the climates, weather, and something else. So that is climate studies, meteorology, and weather forecasting. We can forecast the weather, whether it is rainy or summer or autumn or winter. It can be forecasted using the passive remote sensing. And the last is disaster monitoring and response. Even when there is a disaster, we can monitor by using the passive remote sensing, and we can able to respond for those disaster. So that is passive remote sensing. Next is active remote sensing. Active remote sensing involves a system that transmits its own energy and measure the reflected or backscattered energy from the target or area of interest. It have their own source of illuminating, allowing them to operate at any time, day or night, and in various weather conditions. So now, active remote sensing is nothing but from the passive remote sensing. It is an easy method of sensing an object. Just the satellite passes the light to the Earth's surface so that the photograph is captured by the satellite. It's a simple and a easy method of capturing the information. So it have their own source of illuminating the data, and it can even work in day or night and in any other various weather conditions. So a simple example for active remote sensing is the camera, which is have to a flash on them the moment when we click the picture. The flash should fire the light from the flash, would reflect from the object, and the camera would record the picture. So in this case, the camera is also carrying the source of illumination. So when the camera is flashed in our face, it is reflected by the camera so that the image can be captured easily by the photographer. So it's an easy method in remote sensing when compared to the passive remote sensing. So some of the applications of active remote sensing, it is the same as the passive remote sensing, same environmental monitoring. Both active remote sensing and passive remote sensing is able to monitor the environment and also the disaster response. It can also respond for the disaster management and geological exploration. Even when there is an earthquake or any other drought problems, it can be explained by the active remote sensing. Urban planning, deforestation, afforestation, and anything that may happens in the atmosphere can be reflected by the active remote sensing. Forestry, whether the land is capable for forestry or anything other else purpose, it can be calculated by active remote sensing. Agricultural purpose, whether the land is dry or it can be able to grow the crop in the land, it can also be monitored by the active remote sensing. And also military intelligence. So military intelligence, whether the military persons can be able to spot their target in the area or not, can be captured by the active remote sensing. So it is a very useful for anything else rather than the passive remote sensing. So some of the benefits of remote sensing: early identification of crop health and stress. So in early days there are no sensing informations, so that the farmers cannot be able to detect the crop's health and their stresses. So by using the remote sensing, the farmers can be able to identify the crop health and their stress, whether it can be able to grow or not, or it is affected by any other disease or growth. So these things are also detected by the remote sensing. So the next point is ability to use this information to do remediation work on their problem. So it's able to get the information for the problem, whether if it is a rainy season or any other drought season, it can be detected by the remote sensing, so that the identification will be used for the drought areas. Crop yield production, so whether the crop can be grow properly or the yield can be get properly, can be predicted by the remote sensing. Reduce environmental impact, so the environmental impact can be reduced by the remote sensing. Crop management to maximize returns during harvest times. So in early days very low harvest can be get by the farmers. By using these remote sensing sources, we can able to get a higher yield, and the productivity of the system is also maintained by the remote sensing, so that the farmers can see a various productivity by using the remote sensing. So that's all about the remote sensing and its steps. Thank you all.